today's story, an amazing woman tells us about a time she almost died twice, and then came back to tell us about the secrets she faced at the edge of life and beyond. Please take a moment to relax, and then let's start her deep trip. I've died twice, and I'd like to tell you about it. It's hard to explain in our limited, three-dimensional language, so please bear with me. This may sound unbelievable, but it's the truth. I could still feel time passing during both of these times after death, even though I wasn't completely cut off from our world. That could be why time felt so different there. What might have been seconds on Earth turned into eons, huge stretches of time passing, in what we think are just moments. I traveled through something that I can only call a tunnel. Even though it wasn't a real tube, it was more like a vessel or a gateway that led me to the next world. I saw realistic scenes from my life on this trip that seemed to last hundreds of years. I didn't feel like my life was passing before my eyes at the time. I was just amazed as I watched. Then I saw things that were bigger than me. Everything became clear to me. I only wish I could have remembered what I learned. I understood what seemed to be the language of the world. The walls around me were covered with symbols like runes and sacred geometry. My awareness grew over what seemed like years, as if every shape and symbol held a key to the mysteries of life. There was a strong sense of connection around me, like I was being initiated into the deeper facts of reality. When she met death for the first time, she felt like she was going through a tube. It wasn't a real place. It was more like a path that took her through different worlds. It was hard to tell time because what seemed like seconds on Earth felt like lifetimes on this journey to another place. She saw patterns and symbols along the walls of the tunnel that she knew were the language of the universe. As she moved, her awareness grew, giving her deep insights into what life is all about. It looked like the tube was a link between life and whatever was coming next. The patterns and images she saw gave her hints of a universal language, which means that everything is linked. For her, these signs were like keys to a greater understanding. They also marked important points on her spiritual path. The length of the tube and the fact that her experience seemed to last forever showed how time is different in the afterlife, where the past and future merge into a single, eternal moment. This first part of her trip got her ready to explore higher realms, where she was led by an unseen force that mirrored her growing awareness. I felt incredibly calm as I walked up to the door, but what I saw at first confused me. It was hard for me to understand, but thankfully, it quickly changed into a big wooden door with a key. It was so smooth and quick that I had no trouble understanding what I was seeing. It's not clear to me if this change was caused by me or by something or someone else. It's possible that the measurement changed to match how I saw it. No matter what, it turned into a door I knew. I could still hear my baby crying for me during the whole thing, like a part of me was still connected to Earth. To give you some background, I had died on the operating table during 2 emergency C-sections, but they always brought me back. I couldn't have any more kids after this, and my baby's cries stopped me from opening the door. Beyond the door, I could feel a soft call. It wasn't urgent or pushy. I knew in my heart that I had an infinite amount of time to make my choice. I stood there, frozen in time, thinking about my choices. A long time had passed, But there was no rush. Somehow, I knew that many years had passed, even though it only seemed like a moment. Not having to make a decision right away gave me time to think about my options. I finally chose to open the door, but I didn't go inside. She came across a doorway at the end of the cave. It was strange at first, but then it turned into a simple wooden door with a handle that everyone knew. While she heard her baby's cries from the world she knew, she paused to step through the open door. She stayed there for what seemed like a long time, thinking about whether to go into a place that she felt was full of knowledge and beauty that she couldn't describe. The doorway was a key choice point between going back to life and going to a higher spiritual level. It stood for the line between living and transcending. It was there that she had to decide whether to follow her physical ties or follow the call to spiritual growth. Staying with what you know versus going into the unknown is a battle that everyone has. The changing shape of the door seemed to reflect her feelings and thoughts, as if her journey were being led by forces outside of her. She put her child's needs ahead of her own spiritual growth at that time by choosing not to go in. This showed how deeply she loved and felt responsible for her kid. I could not deny that there was a presence around me, an energy that felt both deeply personal and vastly universal. It felt like this presence covered everything and nothing at the same time. It wasn't like any being we usually think of, and it wasn't alive in the way we think of life. But it wasn't dead or lifeless either. It existed outside of our world. This existence was not affected by death. It just existed forever, with no start or end. It was a force that had always been there and would always be there. It was so different from what we normally talk about in 3 dimensions that words like it and they don't do it justice. I was speechless in this amazing place. I heard from the Spirit, which warned me. It told me not to go through the door until I was sure I didn't want to go back to the life I had before. It led me in a way that was both gentle and strong, making the weight of the choice I had to make clear. I stood on the doorway and looked through the door into a space I didn't know. It was hard for me to make the choice because the view beyond was both inviting and strange, appealing to the part of me that wanted to learn and explore. As she stood at the doorway, she felt something that she couldn't put into words. This entity existed beyond the limits of the physical world and was both one and many. It didn't use words to talk, but it understood right away and deeply. This being, who held both everything and nothing, told her kindly not to go back until she was sure she didn't want to do so. The presence felt like pure knowledge and direction, showing how everything is linked. It was beyond life and death and connected us to more advanced information. Its lack of shape reflected the spiritual world, where identities blend and go beyond what makes someone unique. This meeting gave her a moment of deep clarity, where her worries about the world met her worries about the infinite. Her conversation with this made her realize how sacred free will is and how important it is to make a decision about leaving this life behind. Oh my goodness, words can't fully describe what I saw. It looked kind of like a tree, but not quite. This tree seemed like the tree of life itself, and all other trees on earth were just shadows of it. It was breathtaking, and remembering it feels overwhelming even now. But the picture is still clear, as if I were still there. The strong desire to walk through the opening held me back. I didn't want to leave my child behind. So I stayed, fascinated for what seemed like hours, taking in everything I could see through that door and learning things I couldn't even begin to understand. We don't know everything there is. There are realms of knowledge and beauty that are beyond our present understanding. The peace that filled that place was deep and lasted longer than time itself. When I was in that moment, I felt like I was being held by forever, and this moment would never end. The wise words that came through that opening struck a chord deep inside me and filled my soul with awe and respect. I felt like I had a connection to everything around me as I sat there, taking in these cosmic insights. It seemed like the very essence of existence was playing out in front of my eyes, showing mysteries that couldn't be explained. The event changed me deeply and gave me a deep understanding that there are parts of reality that we can't see with our normal eyes. In that timeless place, I caught a glimpse of the tapestry of the universe, which is so big, beautiful, and complicated that it's hard to imagine. Each revelation made me think more deeply, which grew my awareness beyond the limits of this world. In the middle of it all, I found comfort in the thought that some secrets are meant to be felt and experienced rather than fully understood. When she peered through the door, she saw something beautiful that looked like the tree of life. Its beauty and complexity overwhelmed her, making her feel a deep sense of sacred knowledge and connection. The vision seemed to leave a mark on her mind that would never go away. Even though this spiritual insight was very appealing, her thoughts kept going back to her child, which kept her from fully enjoying the experience. The tree of life has a lot of symbolic value because it is the source of all life and shows how everything is connected. Its roots and branches represent the flow of life energy and the constant thread that connects all the different parts of reality. For her, this vision was a rare look into the holy blueprint of the universe. It gave her deep insights into the mysteries of life and how it all began. At some point, I realized I wasn't completely ready. I had a vague sense that something was telling me to come back when the time was right. There were no spoken words or visual forms talking to me. Instead, I had a strong sense of being guided. All of a sudden, I was back in my own body, and every part of me hurt. It felt like I had been reborn, jolted back into mortal life and the limits of a body. It was like trying to put a tent back into its bag after unfolding it. It was hard to get everything back in exactly, so you had to cram everything in and hope nothing would tear or leak out. I continued to have times in the weeks that followed when my awareness seemed to float outside of my body. There was a big difference between the ethereal places I had seen and the solidity of life on Earth. After feeling the vastness of the beyond, getting used to the limits of a physical body was both strange and enlightening. Each event left an impression that reminded me of how everything is linked. These events weren't just memories. They were life-changing experiences that changed how I thought about life and awareness. They left me with a lasting sense of purpose and a greater interest in the mysteries that lie beyond our everyday perceptions. She stood at the edge for a long time and then decided not to go into the next realm. Right away, she was back in her physical body, dealing with a lot of pain and the sudden return to normal life. It was hard to understand the change. She kept having out-of-body experiences, feeling like she was stuck between two worlds in the weeks that followed. Her return to earthly life was a sign of how hard it is to get used to life again after a near-death experience. The pain and confusion made the difference between the bodily and spiritual worlds even more clear. During this time, the difficulties people faced as they tried to balance their heightened awareness with normal life were brought to light. Her long-lasting link to the spiritual world points to a permanent change in which the lines between life and the afterlife become less clear, allowing for a constant conversation between the two. I felt like I was floating between two worlds, stuck in a state of in-betweenness. I often saw a pale-faced man in that other world that I entered through my dreams. Even when I was about to die, this person showed up to me in a different form. He still comes to me in my dreams and keeps talking about a key he wants me to take. Whenever we talk in our dreams, he keeps telling me how important it is for me to accept this key. Even though he explained, I still don't understand what the key is for, which makes me feel very uneasy. I feel like there will be no going back once I accept the key. This feeling of not knowing makes me hesitant to make such a fatal choice in this life. Running into the pale-faced man is just one strange thing that has happened to me since I got back. Each meeting has an air of mystery and importance about it, which makes me both interested and nervous. The fact that he is still here reminds me of how thin the line is between our world and the unknown. I often think about what this key means and the trip it represents. I feel like it could unlock something deep, but I'm not ready to face it yet. She saw a figure in her dreams and out-of-body events that she called the pale-faced man. This being showed up both when she was close to dying and later, giving her a key that he said was very important. Even though he explained it, she still didn't fully understand why it was important without fully accepting it. After the event, the man's constant presence and his mysterious key kept coming up in her daily life. The pale-faced man is a sign of a guardian or guide, possibly a part of her better self or a spiritual teacher. The key stands for information or access to deeper facts that she isn't ready to fully accept just yet. His repeated visits show that her spiritual journey is ongoing and that she is gradually learning about her duties and gaining new insights. The key represents possibility and freedom, urging her to learn more about spiritual matters when she is ready. Her doubt shows the normal conflict between wanting to know more and being careful when big changes are happening. It felt like the world had woken up in a way I had never imagined. I could feel soft tremors coming from everything and everyone around me. Animals and plants seemed to talk to my soul directly about how they felt and what they needed. In a very different way, I could feel their feelings and life force. There was an energy that filled every encounter and presence that spoke deeply to me. The feelings of others were like an open book, and I could easily feel how intense they were. It was like I could feel their happiness and sadness, their dreams and fears. It was both exciting and scary to be so sensitive to everything around me. It made me feel more connected to it than ever before. It was a link that went beyond the physical and into the very core of being. When someone had entered or was close to entering the fourth dimension, they felt a certain way, a strange, alien pulse that I could pick up with startling clarity. This feeling of heightened awareness had come back to me before and lasted for months. This time, it was even stronger. Even though the experience was the same, it was much deeper this time. It was something I often thought about. Would this heightened state of awareness go away, like it had in the past? The thought kept coming back to me, but I hoped it wouldn't. What I loved most about these feelings was how rich they were and how connected I felt. Something about it felt like I had tapped into a hidden part of reality that had always been there, but had only now become clear to me. She often felt moved to a world beyond our own in her daily life. Her close calls with death had changed the way she thought and made decisions. A part of her wanted to go back into that strange realm, but she also felt very connected to her responsibilities and life on Earth. The pull of this otherworldly realm represents how deeply her near-death experiences affected her, and it serves as a steady reminder of the spiritual realms that exist beyond our physical lives. This tug-of-war is a metaphor for her dual life, in which she lives in both the real world and the spiritual unknown. It shows how everyone wants to find meaning and deeper relationships that go beyond material things. When you put your bare feet on the ground, have you ever felt the earth's soft pulse? Amazing things happen when you touch the cool, welcoming earth and feel it breathe on its own. Have you ever taken the time to really talk to a tree, listening to its old knowledge and the wind's whispers? Just think about how much peace and closeness that would bring. Would you ever think about giving up such a powerful skill once you've learned how to use it? There is no doubt in my mind that we all have this ability just ready to be discovered. However, we often choose to keep it hidden, locked away in the back of our minds. Some of us might find it scary to think about connecting so deeply with nature, even if we're not aware of it. It can be scary to think about how deeply we can feel and hear the words that the world around us doesn't say. We hesitate because we are afraid of the unknown, which keeps us from fully using these skills. We know deep down that letting these kinds of events happen could change us in ways we can't imagine. Some of us are scared of what we might hear if we pay too much attention, or what we might feel if we let the world fill our hearts. She talked about how the ground felt like it was moving under her feet, and how she talked to the trees. This made her connection with nature stronger and helped her see the world in a way that most people don't. The living spirit of our world and its creatures became more important to her, and she felt their presence and vitality more deeply than ever before. The earth's slow movements and her interactions with the trees show a deep link with nature, where the lines between people and nature become less clear. This experience takes me back to a more instinctual way of life, where I see nature as a living, breathing thing. It comes from an old idea that the earth is a caring, conscious force that is connected to our lives. This chapter stresses how important it is to get back to nature in order to fully understand how all life is linked and sacred. I can't help but feel a pull from that world every day. Its mysteries and wisdom call to me. It draws me in with a soft but persistent pull, beckoning me to dive deep into it and find out everything it has to give. I want to accept what I call the knowing, which is a deep understanding that goes beyond the everyday. Every second that goes by makes the desire to find that elusive key and walk through the doorway stronger. In my heart, I think the key is more than just a way to open that door. If it were, I would understand what it's for better. There seems to be something deeper going on here that needs more understanding. Maybe someone will be able to help me with it one day. She often felt pulled to something outside of the normal in her daily life. She had several close calls to death that changed how she lived her life and made choices. She had a strong desire to go back to that strange world, but she also loved her life on earth and all the responsibilities that came with it. The pull toward this fourth dimension is a constant reminder of the spiritual worlds beyond this world. It represents how deeply those events affected her. The picture shows how she lives with one foot in the real world and the other in a deeper, more spiritual one. This feeling is shared by everyone who looks for links and meaning beyond what they can see or touch. Her desire to go back shows how people are always trying to learn and grow. And it also shows how committed she is to living a full life in the present moment. But no matter what, I want it all, and also want to hold on to my death a little longer. Some people are lucky enough to be given this life, which is a one-of-a-kind trip. It makes me want to see my kids grow up, become wiser with age, and see the world through the eyes of a normal person. It's hard to put into words how deep and complicated the thought is. On the edge of two worlds, it feels like I have one foot in each one. I really hope that other people have felt this way too. It really makes me feel alone whenever I try to talk about my situation. I worry that I sound crazy. It's almost like the words I use can't fully express how I feel. I need to know that I'm not going through this process by myself. I need to know that other people have been through this and felt this mix of attachment and hunger. I feel a lot of different feelings that are hard to put into words, and I often feel like no one understands me. I want to meet with other people who have felt the same way about having two lives at the same time. I need to figure out how to make sense of it all, or at least connect with other people on a personal level. In the end, she chose to fully enjoy her human life and treasure the unique adventures it brought her. She wanted to be with her kids as they grew up and see how life worked from a human point of view, even though she had a deep knowledge of and connection to another realm. She knew how valuable it was to live a human life with all of its challenges and joys. The gift of death shows how valuable life is, even though it has some problems. It reminds us that the relationships and experiences we make in the real world are priceless and have a lot of value. She chose to stay because she is deeply thankful for the path of life and all the chances it gives her to grow, love, and change. Thanks for hearing today's story about the future. We pray that you stay healthy and have a wonderful day.